Hi, Cancer Sun and Rising. Welcome to your January 2022 Astro Update. It's Raina here. And there's a lot of, it seems like unusually high amount of activity and significant activity in Capricorn. And for you, this is your opposite sign. So the opposite house for Cancer Sun and Rising in your chart would be the seventh house. And this is the house of committed partnership and legal affairs, public relations. So let me just kind of talk about the different influences that are here, and you might start to connect the dots because some of you are going to feel this already. If you're listening in December when I'm recording this, you might be like, yeah, this is already happening because I'm recording this the day before the sun goes into Capricorn at the solstice. So that is going to be a significant event, okay? But at the time that the sun goes into that seventh house, we already have retrograding Venus there. Venus went retrograde on the 19th of December. So a Venus retrograde in the seventh house, which is one of the houses that it rules, means that an X, I'd call it like an XX, meaning that it's a serious X, could definitely come back in the picture. No, well, I shouldn't say definitely because then it sounds like I'm guaranteeing it, you know what I mean? I'm always a little bit, trying to keep an open back door for that because it could manifest in another way. But it's just like, wow. You know how it could manifest in another way is if you have your own business or if you work for somebody else, but like if, let's say you're a counselor and you work for somebody else, but you have your own clients that you see, you might get some people from the past coming back to work with you again, or, whatever other field does things like that. So yeah, this could be something where, another example would be, let's say you were in the midst of a divorce and then the two of you try to make it work again. So, Venus goes direct on the 29th of January. So, Venus is a very fast-moving transit to begin with, but it will stay in Capricorn. It won't clear out of its shadow, I should say, until early March. So this is going to be a long time in this area. And so any kind of marital issues, legal issues may persist even after Venus goes direct because there is still stuff that might need to be worked out. So that's there as the year 2022 begins, and smack dab right away on the 2nd of January, we have a new moon at 12 degrees of Cancer. So we already have a new moon here. Now, I believe Mercury is probably already in its shadow as the year begins because it's going retrograde mid-month. I'll talk about that in a second. But having a personal planet retrograde in the same sign as the new moon may make the new moon feel like it's a little bit uncertain, but it doesn't have to be because Venus may affect certain areas, but I don't believe that you have to forego anything new that you want to start. I'm sure that there are people who have put out videos on the do's and don'ts of a Venus retrograde, and you can certainly check that out if you're concerned about the viability of that time frame. But I think that it's really about purchases, especially big ticket items, because they tend to bring a lot of consequences to them. I don't know if a marriage under a Venus retrograde is advisable, but I don't know. I mean, it'd be kind of fun to defy the odds. um, so anyway, on the same day, well, let me just say this, a new moon in the seventh house, just in terms of intentional behavior, for everybody, because not all cancers are going through marital problems, or when I say marital, I'm also talking about domestic partnerships. But I'm sure a lot of cancers think that marriage is superior to that. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. But anyway, on the same day, Mercury goes into Aquarius, which is the eighth house. And so what I want to say is that you can't control other people, but you can control yourself, and you can control how you choose to frame things, how you choose to, how you choose to perceive things, how you choose to perceive other people. And it's very interesting to me because a lot of people get into that mode of, like being too like sticking their head under the sand when it comes to a relationship issue. And so because of that, because they stick their head in the sand, they're in denial, and they don't, they're not solving their problems. That's not what I'm talking about, but you can see things very clearly and then choose not to judge that person harshly and to treat them in a humane way. And an example is if, you are dealing with the aftermath of a partner having an affair. And I know somebody, not somebody, really close, but my partner was telling me about someone who is going, who got divorced because of infidelity, and this person was very contrite, but the other party was not having it. And it's a personal choice in those situations whether if you get cheated on, you choose to forget or not. Sometimes people are not contrite. Sometimes you know that they just are sorry they got caught. That's not what I'm talking about. I would never suggest anybody stay under those circumstances. But I do think that human beings are complex, and they do things for, sometimes the reason they're doing things isn't out of lack of love. I do think that sometimes other factors interfere. Sometimes addiction, like alcoholism, plays into it, or some other substance abuse, and they're having trouble with self-control and things like that. But anyway, my point is that this new moon intention can be coming from that eighth house where Mercury has just gone into on the same day. So when I see transits are happening on the same day, I try to draw connections. And so Mercury is your mindset. The eighth house is the house of transformation. It's also the house of the shadow. So shadow work meaning your own stuff. And, I always kind of cringe when I say or hear shadow work, because it sounds like a woo-woo type of word, and I really don't think it's something that anyone is doing actively unless they're in psychotherapy, or something along those lines. working with a life coach, but I mean, you'd have to really dig into your own stuff. For me, I was just telling my partner that I recently started having a bunch of past memories coming to me. Like I would just start thinking about things that were, grievances that I held for different people in my life, resentments. And it ran the gamut. And I was like, why do I keep thinking about these things? It wasn't like an obsessive thought, but it would just, seem like it was a period where it was happening unusually often. I mean, that it was happening regularly. And I was just telling him about this today, and I really feel like my higher self was bringing up for me these things that I had not yet forgiven. And I didn't lift a finger. All I did was relive the memory, but I observed how I felt by the thoughts that I had for these situations. I really was in that observer mode, and one of the things that I kept saying to myself was, wow, you really have a lot of these grievances. Because on the surface, I'm not an angry person. And yet I could see, and I don't feel like a bitter person. I don't feel like I'm always doing that. Like I'm always thinking about, oh, this person did me wrong. But it does sometimes. If I'm hearing about somebody, I'll jump to a memory. I think that's human nature, and everybody does that if we've had negative experiences with a particular person. But I don't do that all the time. So, to me, that's shadow work. It just means the shadow is what you're not consciously focused on. And if you do not ever focus on it, it will stay on the sidelines, but it doesn't mean that it is not affecting you. It's kind of like this weird notice I got on my computer the other day, and it said something like, background operations are running or something, it's active. And I was like, it just creeped me out, so I deleted the app, because I'm like, it was like I don't know, it was something that I felt like, oh, they're spying on me or something like that. So it's still that negativity hasn't gone anywhere just because it's running in the background and it's muted. It's still there. And the more light you want to feel, the more free you want to feel, the more loving you want to feel, the more you have to be willing to let go of those grievances. But it's not, you can't do that at the snap of a finger. So it's not something like that. I don't think so. I think it can happen. I think you can drop it instantaneously if the right conditions arise where you're ready, or if it's some kind of, God's grace or something like that. But this is more of an intentional thing, where you are studying how to transform yourself through the mind. And this is, to me, self-inquiry really makes sense when it comes to the 8th house. So on the 14th, Mercury retrogrades in this house, this 8th house. And boy, oh boy, when Mercury's retrograding, you're really going over these kinds of things. Now, this can also be, Mercury can be study. So you might be studying metaphysics. Astrology is associated with the 8th house, the tarot, too. Of course, a Cancer person would be Bafo, if that means good, at that. And also something even more esoteric. The Mercury retrograde could see you retaking or restarting a course. in this area. But also the 8th house is other people's money. So remembering that the 7th house is our legal affairs, there could be some issue with a what do you call it? Like an inheritance or something along those lines, and there's some snafu, something, maybe there are 2 wills, and which one is the right one? Something like that. So that's going on. On the 17th, there's a full moon in your sign. Oh, isn't that interesting? It's a late degree Cancer, 27 degrees. So something coming to your awareness about you. Now, it could be on the physical level. I need to do this because the first house can be your body. I need to do this for my body, for the sake of my body. It can be a change that is going to be taking place in your life, in some area of your life, in a very, like, maybe such a major change that affects everything about your life. But some awareness about yourself, ending a way that you act because you realize that it's not serving you. And whenever there's a full moon, the sun is at the exact same degree in the opposite house, in the opposite sign. So the sun is at 27 Capricorn in that 7th house. So shining a light on that other person. And maybe you're able to see how the 2 of you and your dynamics have affected you. Now, this could go any which way. It could be that you realize, oh, wow, I need to stop doing this. So for Cancer, a lot of times it'll be, I need to stop being codependent. You know, I need to mind my own business and focus on my own things. I'm mothering my husband. And by doing that, I'm keeping him in a dependent position. And then I'm bitching at him because he's not taking responsibility for things. And I need to let him, stand on his own 2 feet. Or I am investing too much in all of my one-on-one relationships. It could even be, 7th house can be your best girlfriends. Or I'm speaking to all of you like you're women and you're not. So I should say your besties, your best friends. That's not true. You can't neglect yourself, because then you feel like the martyr. You feel like that everybody's taking advantage of you. Everybody's, what's that term? They're not giving their, I've been in bed all week with the flu. I just finally got over the flu, and I'm like, still trying to get my brain to function. Being taken for granted. That can be what you feel like from other people. But by the same token, you might be too self-sacrificing. So it's not selfish to think of yourself. You count too, just like all the people that you care for. So on the 18th, Uranus goes direct at 10 degrees of Taurus. And this is your 11th house of hopes and wishes, friendships, and groups. Uranus rules this house. And so Um, this, if you have been one of those Cancers who will do anything for your friends, you may have been AWOL, and for good reason, like I had just outlined earlier. And Uranus is so abrupt, so, sudden, that when it is in the house of friendships, you might just be like, that's it. I actually just did a video for Cancer sun signs who have their moon in Aquarius, and I was talking about that dynamic between a Cancer person who has their ruler, the moon, in Aquarius, and how strange that is because of that Aquarian influence, which is so blowing hot and cold. So now that, well, when Uranus was retrograde, you might have been kind of, I wouldn't say licking your wounds, but reflecting on maybe some sudden breaks that you made. And this can also involve groups that you quit associating with for whatever reason, and usually they will be because they're not progressive enough. You felt that they were too backwards, or whatever you want to call it, and you are feeling, with Uranus in this house, a pull towards kind of out of the box types of people and groups. And so that could be connected to your spiritual awakening. And certainly, Cancer is a sign that I see as very much a people person, and that you really gain a lot of energy through your contacts with other people, being a water sign. Even though, there can be that insular quality, I still think that water signs are very social in their own way. So, anyway, that's happening, and on the 19th, the sun goes into Aquarius, and this is that 8th house, so you have Mercury and the sun there, and more emphasis on this area of transformation, personal alchemy. 24th, Mars goes into that 9th house. I mean, not 9th, 7th house. Mars into Capricorn. So there's that planet that is the god of war. In the house of marriage, in the house of legal matters. So perhaps things are getting more heated up. Now, you do have Venus there, so it can be kind of a counterbalance, but Venus has retreated because it's retrograde, and Mars is roaring into this house. And are you looking for a fight, or is there a battle that you feel has to be fought and won? In terms of those who are not getting divorced, who are coupled, watch out for more testier exchanges with your partner. It doesn't have to be this way. Maybe it's the new year. Maybe you're going to start an exercise program with your partner, something physical, sport, or some kind of a sport together. Maybe you're going to go hiking together. Could be something good. On the 25th, Mercury goes there too. See what I'm saying? See how many planets are there in that 7th house? And but Mercury is going there as it is retrograding, so it is dipping back there. It is not direct. So that could bring any kind of legal matter into the picture. So if it has something to do with a will and you discover it, then that has to be, entered into the court records or what have you. Mercury, the reason I'm saying that is because Mercury can be like documents and things of that nature. On the 29th, Venus goes direct at 11 degrees of Capricorn, so the beginning of resolution on that front. But getting back to Mercury being retrograde in this house, Mercury retrograde can also bring back people from your past. And in the 7th house, it could be an ex-partner. So we have these two planets that in the last week of the month are retrograding in the house of marriage. It goes without saying that, in any kind of situation where you hear back from an old partner, that you are realistic, that you're not, that you don't have like vague longings, that you're really going on, some kind of retread of a relationship that never had a chance to begin with. So they say that, Venus retrograde can make something seem very attractive in the short term, and then you realize that you've made a mistake. So anyway, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. And if you would like a private reading, the best value for a comprehensive reading is my deep dive reading, which are 2 full-length readings for a special price. And it combines an hour of natal chart analysis with an hour of transits for the upcoming year. And now that I'm saying this at the beginning of the year, I can say for 2022. So you can check out that reading and other readings at the link below. Thanks for listening. Take care.